Afraid of being alone? Here's what helped me. Loneliness isn't always peaceful. Sometimes it feels like a punishment, like you're being haunted by memories that won't let you rest. I used to think being alone meant I failed, until I realized it was my first real chance I had to come home to myself. Hi everyone, my name is Anisha Nassali. If you've just left a toxic relationship or still healing from one, this video is for you. Because no one really talks about this part. We imagine that walking away brings peace, and sometimes it does. But for many of us, what shows up next is fear. Not just grief or regret, but a deeper anxiety. What if I can't handle being alone? You second guess your decision. You replay every conversation. And suddenly, the silence starts to feel louder than the chaos you've just escaped. That's what I'm here to talk about. Today, I'll be sharing my honest journey through that fear and what actually helped me stop from running from my own company and start feeling safe in it. The deep roots of fear. Sometimes the fear of being alone doesn't come from loneliness itself. It comes from what the relationship took from you, quietly, over time. Toxic relationships often look like closeness on the outside. You text constantly, you're always in each other's space, but the truth is, that kind of intensity can be a mask that hides a deeper isolation, a much deeper isolation. You're not really being seen, you're being controlled. And when gaslighting starts to creep in, it's more confusing, it's destabilizing. You start to question your memory, your instincts, even your ability to handle life without them. That false sense of connection becomes a trap, one that convinces you that you're safer with them even when you're suffering. Bit by bit, your self-worth becomes chipped away. Maybe they criticized you in subtle ways, or maybe your goals seem small. Maybe they said no one else would ever want you. Eventually, you begin to believe it, and that belief lingers long after they're gone. And then there's a strange comfort of the familiar, even when it hurt. When you're trauma bonded, walking away doesn't feel freeing, it feels like a withdrawal. Your body misses the chaos, your brain craves the patterns, because even pain, if repeated long enough, can start to feel like home. That's why fear runs so deep. You're not just facing aloneness, you're facing the version of yourself that convinced you to forget. Thank you for making it this far in the video. Please let me know if you're getting value from these videos by leaving a comment below. Number 2, my journey out of loneliness. After my relationship ended, my apartment didn't feel like freedom. It felt like a haunted house. Every single corner held a memory. The shirts in the closet, the voice in the hallway, even the silence felt like him. I couldn't heal in a space that still echoed his presence. So my first step was to reclaim it physically. I started with the chaos, still chaos, while clearing the chaos. I started with the obvious, decluttering. Every item that reminded me of him, gone. Not in anger, but as a ritual, a release. Then I slowly began to personalize my space again. Candles I loved, colors that felt like me, moving furniture around, new bed sheets, art that made me feel grounded. And most importantly, I set boundaries. This home became mine again. A space that didn't have to reflect the past, but who I was becoming. That shift, it changed more than just the atmosphere. Rediscovering my authentic self. Even when the space felt renewed, I felt lost because somewhere along the way, I'd forgotten who I was. I realized that I had no idea what I even liked anymore. So, I decided to date myself. I started small, walks without my phone, coffee shops with a journal. I tried new classes, went to museums alone, signed up for things just because they sparked curiosity. I circled back to old passions, music I'd stopped listening to, books I used to love, hobbies I abandoned to keep him comfortable. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't quick, but with each solo adventure, I rediscovered the parts of me that had been buried under a long time of appeasing, shrinking, and surviving. Journaling helped connect the dots, where I had lost myself and where I was starting to come alive again. The process was slow, but waiting for someone to validate me, I started showing up for myself. Building a support system. Still, even with all that inner work, I knew I couldn't do this alone. Toxic relationships isolate you. They cut you off, sometimes subtly, sometimes blatantly. By the end, I'd pushed away so many people, so I decided to reach out to the friends who had stayed patient even when I disappeared. I joined support groups online. Eventually, I found a therapist who helped me name the things I couldn't untangle on my own. And I became selective of who I let in. No more chasing connections to avoid silence. I looked for people who made me feel safe, seen, and steady. Sometimes that meant volunteering or attending a local meetup, not to be social, but to feel part of something bigger than my pain. And slowly, I realized being alone didn't mean that I was unloved. It meant I had space to choose better love, starting with my own. Chapter 3. Shifting your mindset. My therapist said something in a session that deeply resonated with me and opened a new door in my healing journey. She said, "Your fear isn't really about being alone. It's about being lonely. And underneath that, feeling powerless." So you have to reframe alone as being autonomous. The word alone carried so much heaviness for me. But one day I started to reframe it. Not alone, autonomous. Not lonely, liberated. It sounds simple, but it changed everything for me. Instead of thinking, I'm alone tonight, I would try. I have the freedom to do whatever I want to do tonight. It wasn't instant. It felt awkward at first, but with time, this shift in language helped me to rewire my perspective. What once felt like emptiness started to feel like spaciousness, like possibility. Cultivating inner strength and resilience. But solitude doesn't feel empowering until you learn to trust yourself again. And after a toxic relationship, that trust is often shattered. My inner compass was completely thrown off, so I had to rebuild it, consciously and gently. I started small. That's important. Daily affirmations, even if I didn't fully believe them yet. I am whole on my own. My worth is not up for debate. Affirmations like that. I celebrated tiny wins, getting through a hard day, saying no without guilt, staying present through a difficult emotion. And I practiced mindfulness, sometimes just sitting with my breath, reminding myself that I could handle the quiet. Over time, this created a quiet strength, a kind of self-resilience I didn't even know I had. The gift of time and self-reflection. And then came the unexpected gift, time. For the first time in years, I had space to think, to feel. No walking on eggshells, no second guessing, just me. So I carved out intentional me time. I reflected, I processed, I even let myself dream again about the future, about what I had wanted that that had nothing to do with anyone else. The solitude became sacred, not a punishment, but a portal, not a void, but a mirror. It showed me who I was and who I was becoming. Healing from a toxic relationship isn't about leaving someone behind. It's about returning to yourself piece by piece. Aloneness can feel sharp at first, but over time it softens. And in that quiet, you begin to hear your own voice again, and that's beautiful. This journey isn't linear. Some days will still feel heavy, but you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from truth, and that's the difference. If this resonated with you, you're not alone. Thank you for being here with me. It's so difficult to recover from a toxic relationship, but sometimes listening to the experience of someone who's gotten through the same situation helps a lot. That's why I've recorded a private video, which you can find in the description box below. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You deserve it.